Welcome to the Round 8 edition of the Brisbane Lions Fancast. We're going to have a chat with Mitch Golby a bit later on in the show. For now, though, Mike, it was a really improved performance on Saturday.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it, Dom? It was huge improvement, as you said, from the previous week against Sydney. We know West Coast isn't in their best form, but they're a top 4 team from last year, and they're just starting to get some players back, and they're starting to hit their stride. And Brisbane really matched it with them for, well, all bar about the last 5 or 10 minutes. So promising, plenty of players coming into form. I thought Joel Patfull found some form, like he got the better of Darling. So I thought it was good to see him get back to form. Mitch Golby, who I know is another one of your faves, mate. He's part of the Paddy Carnesis circle. But
a few of them there,
he played great. It would be great to have a chat with him.
Another one I want to jump in with is Justin Clark. In his third game, he was just exceptional down back.
They're the hard ones to find, aren't they? The big key position players. So that's a real win early in his career so far to look like you've found a player that can hopefully hold down a key position spot.
Brent Staker might be returning this week, Vossi said. I know you were at the press conference the other day when it all happened. What's your opinion on it? Do you think he will play?
Well, Vossi sort of spoke in riddles a little bit there. I mean, initially he said that he was a huge chance of playing, but then he just sort of softened it towards the end of the presser by saying that if it's not this week, it's definitely next. Personally, I think it's probably best to leave him for another week. There'll be a temptation to put him back in there, and I know they've really missed him in the last couple of years, but personally, I'd go for another week. Mate, what do you reckon?
I'd be pretty tempted to leave the team just about unchanged from Saturday. I thought they really cracked in and showed the best effort and skill that we've seen from the boys this season, so I think I would give them another go at it.
No, I think you're right, and I just reckon that one extra run in reserves, it's not going to hurt him. He's been out of the game for, as we know, almost 2 years, really, at senior level, and while he would be absolutely busting to make his senior return, one more week's not going to hurt, I don't think.
Any chance you reckon when he does return, kicks a goal, the footy fix symbol comes out?
I hadn't thought of that actually, but I'm sure he listens to our show. So
got to make it happen, Stakes.
If he is, let's see if he gives a bit of a symbol there. I'm sure Charmo on the other, and Rocky will be in his ear. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Moving forward to this weekend's game, it's a Saturday afternoon one at Etihad against Essendon, and I do hesitate when I say Etihad because it is a ground we've been thrashed twice this season, and it's against a side who thrashed us there last season. So the signs don't add up to a positive image.
No, the stars aren't aligning. Well, not for Brisbane anyway.
Yeah, no.
But they've really got to do something. I mean, I don't want to say last week's match against West Coast was irrelevant because it wasn't. It was great to see guys get back into form and at least be competitive. But until you see it 2 weeks in a row, until you see it at Etihad, where, like you said, they've been blown off the park against the Bulldogs and Kangaroos, it's going to be hard to accept that the Brisbane have sort of turned the corner, isn't it?
I think what will make it an even more exciting game, though, is going to be the fact that we're wearing the three-peat anniversary Guernsey, which is the old line and the names of all players who played in that period on it, and I think it's just going to be great to see Brownie and Blackie and McGrath out in the jumper that they won premierships in.
I guess from the fans' perspective, you can hope that it was a bit like the Bulldogs match last year at Etihad.
Or even St Kilda on Monday night when they were wearing their
That's
Guernsey.
Right. You don't know what it does to players and how it inspires you. And I mean, if recollections of that great era of Brisbane 10 years ago can't inspire you, well, there's something wrong. I mean, if that can't do it, what can? And when you've got Jonathan Brown still as your leader and following him onto the field with all that history of that those 3 premierships, boy, I know you'd want to run through a brick wall, wouldn't you?
Definitely. And I know it's not going to be an easy match at all, but in this Guernsey, against probably the competition front runners along with Geelong, it may be a pipe dream, but how much of a statement would it be if we could go out and beat Essendon on Saturday?
As we said last week, this is a nightmare run, and it's going to probably, the next 6 weeks is probably going to determine not only the Lions season, but it's going to have a big say in Michael Voss's future. But it's a nightmare, but it's a great opportunity, isn't it? You can turn things around, you can show that you've improved against the top teams. Coming into this year, that was the big question. Could Brisbane close the gap to the top teams? Well, here's the chance to show it.
If we take the attitude into the game that we had against West Coast, I think we're every chance of causing a bit of an upset, because this patch, it could break our season, completely derail everything, or it could be the making of this side.
I don't quite share your confidence there, Dom, but would be happily, proved wrong. I mean, I'd love nothing more than to see the Lions turn things around and put in a great performance and sneak a winner. It'd be one hell of an upset.
Definitely, and maybe it would include a few goals from Mitch Golby, who's the new goal kicker at the Lions, it seems, and we're going to have a chat to him on the Fancast right after this.
At the Brisbane Lions, we love social media. Liking our fan page on Facebook or following @Brisbane Lions on Twitter is a great way to keep up to date with the latest Lions news and access exclusive behind-the-scenes content. You could also win some great prizes by entering one of our online competitions.
He kicked his first 2 career goals on the weekend, Mike, and he's joining us on the line for a chat now on the Fancast. It's Mitch Golby. Mitch, you probably played one of your best games for the club on Saturday. Were you really happy with how you went?
Yeah, individually I was reasonably happy with how I went. Had to sort of try and keep Gaff out of the game. It can be pretty dangerous for them, and managed to sort of do that and find a couple touches myself, which was handy.
As Dom said there, it was probably certainly your best game of the season, at least, if not your best for the club. You seemed to struggle a little bit early in the season. Was there anything you sort of worked on recently to try and sort of turn your form around?
Yeah, I'd been missing a lot of easy kicks that probably shouldn't have been missing, so I'd put a fair bit of time into that into the pre-season, but that was one of the more disappointing things for me, sort of for the first few weeks. So being able to sort of amend that a bit was handy on the weekend, and it made me feel a lot better about my game compared to previous weeks.
As I mentioned, you did kick your first career goal in the first quarter and followed up quickly with a second one. Was the fact you hadn't kicked a goal something that you were conscious of and had thought a bit about?
Yeah, I knew, because a lot of the boys used to get into me a bit, because I'd had something like 7 or 8 shots and not scored, so the boys are into me a fair bit, so being able to slow on was a bit of a relief.
Not anymore, they won't be into you anymore.
Nah, I hope not anyway.
Mate, can you just tell us, obviously your rebound and your ball use is really important to the club. How difficult is it to balance that sort of defence-first mentality with trying to run off and get your own ball?
Yeah, it can be tough at times, sort of depending on who you're playing on. Some blokes sort of push really high up the field, so it's easier to sort of be able to get on the counter-attack, and other blokes sort of more stay at home. So being able to find that balance is pretty tough at times, but yeah, like you said, it's really important for sort of myself, Adcock, Elliot Yeo, Ashra, to be able to find that balance so that we can give the counter-attack, but most importantly, shut down the dangerous blokes that we play on.
A few times throughout the season so far, you've pushed a bit into the midfield, whether that's on the wing or even, I think once or twice I saw you in the actual middle 4. Do you see midfield being a big part of your game going forward?
After the weekend, I got a bit more confidence in myself that I probably do have the ability to play that sort of wing role, and then maybe inside, but yeah, I'm happy to play wherever I fit into the 22 for the side. So I suppose it's a positive that I can do that at times, but wherever I'm needed, I'm more than happy to play.
Just on a team front, Mitch, we saw like a far more competitive effort on Saturday than the previous weeks, but I guess the key now is to replicate that, isn't it? And you've struggled at Etihad. Can you tell us what the talk's been early in the week about trying to overcome those poor performances at Etihad early this season?
Well, there's a lot of positives out of the weekend. Like, obviously the season hasn't started off how we would have liked to, but yeah, a lot of positives from the weekend, like our contested ball and these types of things are all up, and yeah, we just got to work on being able to finish off. Like, I think we beat them by 8 or 10 inside 50s or something like that, and yeah, just the ability to finish off plays. Like, we kept getting the ball in there, but there's a lot of 4 entries inside 50, so being able to fix that up. And obviously our goal kicking has been a bit of an issue for the first few weeks. I think we had the most behinds for probably maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. So being able to fix those few things would go a long way towards, I suppose, getting the 4 points that we need down at Etihad.
Essendon were a very heavy winner against you guys last year down at Etihad, and they've been travelling very well this year, probably the best team in the comp alongside Geelong. How do you think you guys should approach what is one of the best teams, one of the most informed teams in the comp?
Yeah, well, we're just going to probably approach it similar to what we did on the weekend. Just really get out there and look to move the ball, because the first few weeks we were pretty stagnant in our ball movement, kept sort of going down the one line. So being able to shift the ball and obviously shift their defence in turn would go a long way towards helping us do that. But it all starts for us on our defence, so being able to make sure that we get all that in check would probably be the main thing for us this weekend.
Just on your ball movement, Mitch, there's been a lot of talk about Jonathan Brown's form. It seems to be that the delivery going into him hasn't been that great. You're sort of doing a lot of work and speaking a lot about exactly how you go into that forward 50 and maybe sort of looking at other options and not just sort of dropping it on top of Brownie's head?
Yeah, especially after the weekend, like I said, about us beating them on inside 50s, and I think disposals and stuff are all up, but it's just, yeah, that final kick inside 50 a lot of the time hasn't been good enough this year, so it's one thing we have to fix up, and yeah, whether that be through hitting other blokes or just shifting the ball quicker, we need to find another way to score, because just bombing in there, as sort of has happened for a little while, hasn't worked. So
at the end of every season, there's a chance for the players in the high-numbered Guernseys like yourself to move up to a lower number, I suppose. But you stuck with the 41 so far. Do you see yourself sticking with that one permanently?
Yeah, I'll stick with it. I played first one in that, and I'll finish off in that as well whenever that time will be.
Great to hear. Well, thanks for joining us on the Fancast today, and all the best against the Bombers.
No worries, thanks a lot.
Looking forward to the weekend's action. The seniors obviously against the Bombers at Etihad Stadium Saturday at 1:45 in the three-peat Guernsey, as we mentioned earlier in the show. It could go either way, this match.
Come on, Dom, give us a prediction. We'll play this back next week, so...
Lions by 10. I'm just doing it. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, I'm going Essendon.
Essendon?
Oh, I'm going Essendon
By how
by
many?
6 or 7 goals.
Okay.
Gladly prove to look like a goose next week, but we'll see how we go. Eh?
And then the reserves are up against the Giants reserves down in Sydney, which is interesting that they're heading down there on different travel arrangements. That's Saturday at 12 p.m. Follow the club's social media. You'll get updates on that game. That is all we've got time for on the Fancast this week, though. Get behind the boys as they go for an upset against the Bombers, and we'll see you next week.